Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a ton of huge news to brief you all on today. Today's date is July 18th, 2025, and it's Friday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today, and I hope you're ready to enjoy your weekend as well. Let's jump right into the news. Lots to cover in today's update. We're going to start out with a major story out of the European Union today as they have finally passed their next round of sanctions onto Russia. So take a look at your screen at this new report. EU hits Russia with new 18th package of sanctions. The pressure is on. The EU has agreed to impose a new round of sanctions against Russia, targeting the country's energy and financial sectors in a bid to tighten the screws on the Kremlin's war machine. So a very big report. We've been hearing about this for weeks now. The EU's been trying to pass this package of sanctions. It's supposed to be going after their oil sector and banking sector the most. I believe we have more Shadow Fleet vessels that have been sanctioned today as well. I'm going to go over all the details and give you guys more information regarding this story. We also have a report today that Ukrainian UAV drones attacked a chemical plant up in the Nizhny Novgorod region of Russia, probably about 600 to 800 kilometers deep into Russian territory. We have video footage of a possible strike there on that chemical plant. And just yesterday, I reported to you guys, we had another chemical plant that was being attacked as well and was hit by numerous drones. So we'll go over that report. I've got a video coming out from the Nizhny Novgorod region as well. We've also got a lot of information of strikes inside of Ukraine. And last night, there wasn't too many drones actually going into Ukraine. Probably one of the smallest amount of drone attacks onto Ukraine that we've seen in a long time. I think it was somewhere around 35 or so drones coming from the Russian Federation. So we're going to jump right into this. Lots to cover in today's update. Let's go ahead and hop on over here to X with ViceGrad24. He's going to give us information regarding this 18th package of sanctions against Russia. So it says here, breaking. The EU just passed the 18th sanctions package against Russia. So the energy sector is going to be targeted. These are the details regarding energy. And it says it lowers the G7 price cap on Russian crude oil to $47.60 per barrel from $60. Okay, so down significantly is what many countries in the EU are going to be forced to pay for Russian oil, which will lower the cost that they pay for this oil in return. That makes Russia much less money. It says here bans transactions with the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines for EU operators, prohibits imports of refined petroleum products made from Russian crude oil via third countries, for example, India and Turkey, adds 77 vessels to the Shadow Fleet blacklist, a total of 419 to curb sanctions evasion. Okay, so 77 more vessels. That's huge as well. So 419 so far just from the EU alone have been sanctioned. We know also that the UK has been sanctioning a lot of vessels as well. I think they've got hundreds already that are sanctioned. Now, their financial sector, this is what it's going to affect. Full transaction ban on 22 additional Russian banks, replacing SWIFT prohibition. Okay, that is huge right there. 22 banks, full transaction ban. Okay, that is very big also because we've been hearing reports that their banks are suffering right now. There's a lot of companies inside Russia that are borrowing money from banks, and a lot of times they're not able to fulfill these loans and pay them back. So banks are already suffering inside of Russia, and on top of that, 22 major banks going to be hit with these sanctions. Also extends transaction bans to financial operators in third countries, aiding sanctions circumvention. Sanctions the Russian Direct Investment Fund and subsidiaries to limit industrial modernization funding. Now, export restrictions. 2.5 billion euros export ban on critical technologies and industrial goods, machinery, metals, plastics, chemicals, dual-use tech for drones and weapons. Okay, that's very good. So that way Russia can't get their hands on certain technologies and equipment that they use to produce weapons for this fight against Ukraine. Then finally here, lists 22 Russian and foreign companies, including from China and Belarus, supporting Russia's military-industrial complex, total over 800 companies. Okay, so the EU's actually hailing this as one of the toughest package of sanctions against Russia to date. So we'll see what happens here, how much this really affects Russia's economy. It's going to take some time to get into place and really affect Russia. So let's see what happens. But I do have some statements coming out from the Kremlin today. They don't appear to be very happy with this report. So now from Ukrainian Review, EU has started work on the 19th package of sanctions against Russia, according to Estonian Foreign Ministry. We will not agree to half-hearted measures. Each new package strengthens our message. Ukraine is not alone, and Russia will not remain unpunished. Okay, guys, so this is huge also. That means we're going to have another package of sanctions already being worked on right now. And this is literally just as today that they're releasing this 18th package. So right away, the EU is going to get to it, working on a next round of sanctions onto Russia. So Russia's definitely got to be feeling the squeeze right now. We just talked about their economy yesterday. They definitely are being hurt by these sanctions, guys. It is hurting them immensely. Many sectors of their economy is suffering like crazy right now inside of Russia. So now let's move on to another one from ViceGrad24. Medvedev said that Russia will intensify attacks on Kiev after the new package of EU sanctions. And this was his message. He says, quote, European fools have agreed on the 18th package of sanctions against our country. Our economy will, of course, withstand this. Strikes on targets in so-called Ukraine, including Kiev, will be delivered with increasing force, he wrote. So Medvedev responds with a major statement that they're going to increase their attacks onto Ukraine with more deadly attacks, okay? It's going to be much worse than we've seen before. We already know the Russians are potentially going to be firing upwards of 500 to 1,000 drones into Ukraine every night. For the last few days, we've been seeing very little amount of drones going into Ukraine, so I have a feeling very soon, probably this weekend, maybe even tonight, we're going to see another massive attack coming very soon. So this is always how Russia responds, okay? When they get hit with these sanctions, they come out with these major threats of more war, you know, not only with Ukraine, but even calling for nuclear war sometimes against NATO. I mean, Russia comes out with a lot of statements like this, especially from Dmitry Medvedev. We know he's a war hawk. He typically does speak this way, and he's the chairman of the deputy chairman of the Security Council, inside of Russia. So that's him right there. So now for Max 25, Ukrainian UAVs attacked industrial area of Zerzhinsk, Nizhny Novgorod region, targeting Korund chemical plant. The cyanide salt workshops were damaged. So this is that report I was telling you guys in the Nizhny Novgorod region where we had Ukrainian drones entering up in this area just earlier today and allegedly could have struck this chemical plant just like we had one yesterday being attacked. I think it was in the Tula region, close to Moscow. This one's past Moscow, probably another 200 kilometers past the Moscow region. So it says here, yeah, cyanide salts workshop was damaged. So I got a video I can show you guys. Not a whole lot of sound in this video, but we will see a lot of pictures and stuff like that, and some smoke that you can see right here in the distance, possibly indicating a direct hit on this chemical plant. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So the beginning here doesn't have a whole lot of sound, but there you go. Right there you can see that smoke, and then you're going to see a UAV flying here in just a moment when it switches scenes. All right, then the rest of these are pretty much just a slideshow of pictures, okay? We can see more smoke right there. There's a little bit of smoke there in the distance also. So allegedly it was hit by a drone. At least we had a cyanide salt workshop that was hit. And we'll wait for more details. If we get more information, I'll do another update for you guys to let you know what happened here. But definitely some sort of strike on the territory of this chemical plant in the Nizhny Novgorod region. All right, now from UA Voyager. Another not good morning in Ukraine. Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Chuiv, if I'm saying that right, Zaporizhzhia region, and many more. Russian missiles, Shaheed, civilians dying, cities burning. Russian terror never stops. We scream, we count the dead, and the world just shrugs. Here's a new picture out of Ukraine today. It looks like we had another direct strike on a high-rise residential building. We had several floors collapsing. This is something we've seen numerous times inside of Ukraine. I mean, look at the fire that caused the burning of multiple apartments right here. Also, all the windows blown out and everything. I wouldn't be surprised this was a missile that struck this building, but I haven't been able to find information on this strike. But very sad to see we had more apartment floors that collapsed here, probably people trapped under the rubble. Very sad to report out of Ukraine today. Here's another one from Max 25 today. For the second time in a day, the Russians attacked a locomotive on the Pryadneprovska, if I'm saying that right, railway, which was transporting civilian cargo. So we had another train here being attacked by a Russian drone, most likely. And yeah, the locomotive here was damaged on the front of this train. You can see here it was attacked by something, probably a drone, maybe a missile. We don't really know. And you can see it was transporting civilian cargo here on the backside. And just yet again, another report of the Russians attacking civilian infrastructure inside of Ukraine. Now, from Ukrainian Review, Russia strikes military recruitment center in Pyaty Kotki, if I'm saying that correctly, also near Dnipro. This is in central Ukraine. The local media reports that 2 people have already died. Okay, this is the second time we've reported a military recruitment center that has been targeted. Now, obviously, it is linked to their military, so it makes sense why the Russians would be going after this, but it's just a recruitment center. And the Russians went ahead and struck it, most likely with a drone or a missile here, just like you see in the video. Do apologize, it is blurred out here, but the Ukrainians do that on purpose to protect the area so that way the Russians cannot adjust their strikes in case they missed. But allegedly, we had reports of 2 people that may have died in this incident with this attack today inside of Ukraine. So very sad. We just had a video like this recently. We had a recruitment center, I think it was in Poltava, kind of like in eastern Ukraine. And that city got hit. So there was a recruitment center that was hit multiple times by Shahed drones, actually. If you guys remember that, it was like a week or two ago. So very sad news. Now from Ukrainian Review, GUR cyber specialists attacked Gazprom's network infrastructure, according to RBC Ukraine. Access was blocked for 20,000 Gazprom system admins. Special software was deployed to continue destroying data. Databases were wiped. Okay, so Gazprom is a major oil company inside of Russia that has been collapsing for years now, and it's gotten much worse for them over the past couple years. So, a GUR cyber specialist carried out a cyber attack on their website. Here's a picture that they put. They typically do this whenever they cyber attack websites inside of Russia. They'll usually put an owl that's kind of showing it gripping onto the company. And allegedly, they wiped out lots of databases here, and access was blocked for 20,000 Gazprom system admins. So, another major cyber attack that Ukraine's GUR carried out onto Russia. Now for Nexo, wow, that was the best call. Trump told Zelensky it's time for Ukraine to go on the offensive. The Washington Post reveals details of the phone call that took place on July 4th. Trump said that Ukraine won't change the course of the war by playing defense. It needs to go on the offensive, the paper reports. According to sources, Zelensky's team couldn't hide their relief and admitted it was the best call they had ever had. Okay, so here's a report today. How Ukraine's allies helped Zelensky recover his standing with Trump this week marked a major turnaround for Ukraine, culminating a 5-month campaign by its allies. Okay, so we talked about this phone call. This was the same phone call around July 3rd, July 4th that Zelensky allegedly spoke to Trump. And Trump was also telling Zelensky, why are you not striking Moscow? Maybe you should go and launch attacks on Moscow and St. Petersburg, force Russia to the table and negotiate with you. And then Zelensky reportedly told Trump, well, just give us the weapons and we'll go ahead and fire these missiles over there or whatever it is that you give us. And allegedly also during that phone call, Trump told Zelensky it's time to go on the offensive. So I wonder if that's why we're also seeing a lot of weapons flowing into Ukraine. Is Ukraine going to receive a massive amount of equipment to launch a major attack back at the Russians while at the same time the Russians are on the offensive right now? So that's going to get very interesting. And it looks like the U.S. could possibly be trying to give Ukraine the upper hand as they prepare for this major ground offensive inside of Ukraine. So that's really good news to hear. And it looks like Ukraine may be able to try to take back some territory and push the Russians back. We'll see what happens. Now for Max 25, MERS reports, we see a serious threat, and it is Russia. This threat is not only directed against Ukraine, this is a threat to our peace, our freedom, and the political order of Europe. Okay, so Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor, coming out today with a major statement calling on Russia and stating that Russia is a serious threat to Europe. Okay, and we're starting to really see this from a lot of European allies. They're really starting to come out and label Russia as a serious threat. This also could be a possible indication that at some point, could NATO go to war with Russia? Could very much be possible. It all depends on what happens with this war in Ukraine. If Russia tries to attack a NATO ally and whatnot, hopefully that will never be the case. But we are seeing a lot of talk coming from top leaders in Europe. They're labeling Russia as an aggressor and also a very serious threat. Now from Euromaidan Press, Ukraine to get Patriot missiles very shortly, Merz says. The Chancellor confirms Germany's air defense transfer will happen within weeks as NATO works out logistics. Okay, this report was actually breaking yesterday. This is what Mers was stating while he was speaking to reporters, that very soon Patriot missiles are going to be arriving inside of Ukraine. And also, I'm assuming, possibly Patriot air defense systems as well. And we have been hearing that maybe upwards of 17, maybe more, who really knows, of these Patriot batteries could be heading over to Ukraine in a very short time. We're talking maybe weeks or months. It all depends on a lot of logistics and things like that. So there was also a report yesterday that many of these systems may be coming from Switzerland. That's why I showed you guys a report. I think it was yesterday or the day before that Switzerland was going to have to be waiting for a transfer of like 5 Patriot air defense systems to their nation. And that's because the U.S. is trying to fast track a lot of these over to Ukraine right now. So apparently there's a bunch of these systems coming from somewhere, and possibly it is Switzerland, and they're going to be going to Ukraine. So very big news. Now for next, Russia is now using napalm and Shahed drones. The attacks are getting even more brutal. The occupiers are upgrading already deadly drones, now equipping them with warheads filled with napalm-like incendiary liquid. This was revealed by electronic warfare expert Suri Flash Beskresnov, if I'm saying that right, in an interview with Radio Liberty. He says, quote, "We recently found a liquid in a Shahed warhead that resembles napalm. It spreads and burns even on sand. This is targeted terror. When a city is hit by such a warhead that sets everything around on fire and can't be extinguished, well, we're not in the jungles of Vietnam. These are million resident cities, and they're using this against civilians. It's one thing when a high explosive hits a factory. It's another when a 5-story apartment building are drenched in burning liquid and whole block ignites. But we know better than to expect the Russians to follow the rules of war," Flash said. "Russia's turning drones into tools of arson, methodically setting cities ablaze." Wow, this is a very scary report, guys. So some of these drones apparently could be fitted with warheads that have burning incendiary liquid inside of them, resembling napalm, like what was used during the Vietnam War. And that is not good to report. We've been hearing that these drones are being fitted with all kinds of different warheads. We're talking nails and tiny fragments of metal inside of them sometimes. Thermobaric warheads that ignite using like a powder that is released. That powder ignites, creating a much greater blast. Now we're hearing that these things are fitted with some sort of napalm-like incendiary liquid in the inside. So very sad, guys. We're going to be seeing a lot of houses burning down, high-rise buildings as well, especially if these are used to smash into residential buildings, apartment buildings. It could burn down an entire apartment building if this liquid really starts to spread. So very scary information there. Now from Ukrainian Review, Republicans in Congress are turning to support Ukraine following Trump, the New York Times reports today. Republican Party is changing course to support Ukraine after Trump's statements about a new strategy, supplying weapons at no cost to the U.S. through payment by allies. Many of the fierce critics of aid to Kyiv are now either silent or support the plan. At the same time, part of the conservative wing considers this a betrayal of voters who voted for the course without foreign wars. Here's the report today. Republicans in Congress shift to backing Ukraine, matching Trump's reversal after years pressing to end U.S. aid to Ukraine. Many Republicans have abandoned that position now that President Trump is supporting the country against Russian aggression. All right, so it looks like we have many Republicans in Congress now shifting their attention to Ukraine. And if you guys remember, right when the Trump administration came into power, we heard immediately actually from the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He was saying, this is when aid to Ukraine ends. We are no longer to be submitting any aid to Ukraine at all. That's why we haven't really seen any aid packages coming from the Trump administration. Any aid that has been flowing over to Ukraine was from past aid from the Biden administration. But now that Trump is all of a sudden starting to switch sides and really help aid Ukraine with all these weapons transfers, we're now seeing Republicans in Congress shifting their attention to Ukraine and backing them. So that is good news to hear, that it looks like the U.S. is going to be siding with Ukraine more often now that Trump is coming out and showing support for Ukraine. Now for Max 25, brothers in arms, Macron, Merz, and Starmer prepare Europe for a future without the U.S., according to the New York Times. Bilateral treaties have already been signed. Cooperation on nuclear deterrence and assistance to Ukraine has been agreed. The EU is preparing an alternative that could replace American leadership in the event of a crisis. Okay, so looks like we're really starting to see these three nations here, the UK, France, and Germany, really start to buddy up, and they're starting to understand more and more every day that the U.S. is an unreliable ally, especially with Trump in office, because Trump really flip-flops all over the place. We've been seeing that with him. So it's creating a lot of confusion and instability within NATO and especially European nations and their relations to the United States. So it looks like Europe is further preparing for to be possibly on their own at some point, and also to replace American leadership, as it states here, in the event of a crisis, especially if a war breaks out. So that is kind of a good thing in a way that Europe is becoming more independent. I think personally that everybody should be independent, regardless, whether it's a nation or a single person or whatever. Everybody should be taking care of themselves. So it is a good thing that we're seeing that out of Europe. Now, from United 24 Media, the UK may join Germany in buying U.S. weapons for Ukraine as talks ramp up to send Patriot missiles and boost air defense against Russia's war. So, this is a new report breaking today, and very good news that the UK might jump in and start buying U.S. weapons for Ukraine. Germany is doing that like crazy right now, and we know that Germany is classifying all their weapon shipments into Ukraine. So, whatever the U.S. sells to Germany, Germany just sends it into Ukraine, and nobody has any idea what they're receiving. They could be getting some major weaponry right now from the U.S., and Russia said they're coming out and they're monitoring these shipments of what kind of weapons are going into Ukraine. They're very concerned about possible long-range missiles that could be hitting their territory very soon, coming from Germany and also the U.S., because we know Germany is funding some domestically produced missiles for Ukraine as well, or missiles that are produced inside of Ukraine, that is. So this is a very good report today. UK might be jumping in to help out. Now, from Ukraine in review, plans to send deterrence forces to Ukraine are ready, says Starmer. I am pleased, like other members of the coalition, that these plans are now as ready as possible for achieving a ceasefire. And that is why last week we held a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing to approve these plans. But now these are already advanced plans. They are ready for implementation, he said. All right, so allegedly, if we get a ceasefire in this war, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, is stating today that they've got a set of soldiers from multiple nations, most likely, that are members of the Coalition of the Willing, that are going to be sending their troops into Ukraine to ensure Ukraine's sovereignty if we get a ceasefire in this war. So, according to the UK today, they are ready to go with this Coalition of the Willing and sending these peacekeepers into Ukraine if we happen to see an end to this war. So, very good news to hear. Now, from Nexta, Russian forces have seized Ukrainian territory the size of Luxembourg in just 7 months. According to Bild, since the start of 2025, Russia has occupied 2,395 square kilometers of Ukrainian land. For comparison, the entire area of Luxembourg is 2,586 square kilometers. In all of 2024, Russia captured 3,388 square kilometers, meaning this year's pace of advance has increased. Okay, that's not good news. This is a map out of Deep State, and I've shown you guys these maps before. These are maps that are created off of open source intelligence. On X is where you can find this. They also have a website, and just kind of a map indicating the advances of the Russians, mainly in the Donetsk region is where we've been seeing a lot of advancement from the Russian side. And according to this report today, the Russians are advancing quicker this year than they were last year, which is not good to hear. Maybe this is also why we're hearing that Ukraine is going to go on the offensive possibly this soon, maybe with the support of the U.S. and all their weaponry. So we'll see what happens with that, but definitely not a good report to hear about Ukraine. Now, from Ukrainian Review, the U.S. will attend the next meeting of the Ukraine Contact Group, Ramstein, the British delegation to NATO. The meeting is scheduled for July 21st. Hegseth and Ruda are expected to attend. UK and Germany will host the next meeting. Okay, so if you guys remember, there was a meeting, just like a month or two ago that was expected to happen, a Ramstein meeting. And what we were hearing, I think it actually got canceled, if I remember correctly. Hegseth, the defense secretary out of the U.S., was allegedly not going to arrive. Somebody else was going to be taking his place. And this was during the time when the U.S. was not really supporting Ukraine. They were really trying to just end this war, side with Russia, if you guys remember all that that was going on. So allegedly now we have a Ramstein meeting that's going to be taking place here, and now the U.S. is expected to be showing up, and Hegseth should be there with Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General. Okay, so that is good to hear. Looks like things are back on track with Ukraine, and Ukraine is going to be starting to get a lot of support, and usually at these meetings, we hear a lot of aid support for Ukraine that gets announced. So that's coming up on the 21st. In just about 3 days, we're going to be hearing some major reports regarding aid for Ukraine. Now from Slava, Ukraine launches the Test in Ukraine program. Foreign manufacturers will be allowed to test the latest weapons directly on the battlefield against the Russian Federation, according to Reuters today. So this is a major report also. So any foreign manufacturers in other countries, let's say inside of Europe, that want to test new weapons, Ukraine is saying, yo, bring them on in, and you guys can test them on the battlefield, see how they work out. And this is great for Ukraine because this could be new weaponry that they can use, possibly purchase from other nations inside of Europe. Which is this is something that Europe is trying to move towards. They're trying to move towards more integration between all these different countries in Europe, sell more weapons within Europe, and stop relying on the U.S. Also, at the same time, it gives more weapons for Ukraine to help them out in their fight against Russia, and also boosting support for Ukraine in the event that they receive more weapons if they start to buy these that are successful on the battlefield. So very good news there. Now from next to no Washington for Umerov. Now he heads Ukraine's National Security Council. Former Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov has been appointed as the new Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council. He was previously considered for the post of ambassador to the U.S., but Washington reportedly rejected his candidacy, unofficially due to his loyalty to Andriy Yermak and potential reputational risks. Now Umerov isn't going to Washington. He's taking charge of Ukraine's top strategic council at home. So this is Rustem Umerov. We talked about him many times. He's the former defense minister. He was literally just defense minister as of a few days ago. There's been a major shakeup in Ukraine's government. A lot of people are getting moved around to different positions. So he's now going to be the national secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, is what's being reported today. Okay, so good news. He'll still be part of the Ukrainian government. Now from Savchenko Vladimir, Trump, Putin, and Xi Jinping may meet in China in early September, according to the Times. Beijing is planning a parade to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory in World War II and wants to bring together Trump, Putin, and Xi Jinping. Putin has already confirmed his participation, and Chinese media are reporting that Trump will also be invited. Now, won't this be interesting? Putin, Xi, and Trump going to be possibly meeting in early September, according to the Times today. We've been waiting to see if Trump and Putin were going to be meeting. And so far, there has been no meeting that's been set up between Putin or Trump at all. Now there could be a possibility that maybe they're going to get to meet personally inside of China very soon, as looks like they're to be both invited to attend the 80th anniversary of the victory in World War II. So let's see how that goes. That'll be very interesting when the time comes, and we'll see if Trump and Putin end up showing up. Now from next to Russia may be preparing a massive Shahed drone attack, over 500 reportedly stockpiled. Military analyst Alexander Kovalenko warns that a large-scale strike on Ukraine using Shahed drones could happen soon. According to his estimates, Russia has stockpiled more than 500 drones, having paused mass attacks for nearly a week. Kyiv has gone 7 days without strikes, a lull previously linked to the visit of the U.S. advisor Keith Kellogg, but he left 2 days ago and the silence continues. A new wave of attacks may follow. I wonder if that's why Keith Kellogg left early, is because maybe Ukraine was going to be under a massive attack again soon. But while Keith Kellogg was there throughout the week, I think he was there like Monday through Wednesday of this week, which is the special envoy from the U.S., we didn't see any strikes on Kyiv at all. Okay, there was no attacks, which is very interesting. Clearly, Putin is very afraid of launching attacks over there and possibly harming Keith Kellogg, who has major relations to the U.S., obviously. And that shows that Putin is afraid of the U.S., which is exactly what Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, said. And because we haven't been seeing any major strikes in Ukraine, and over the last 2-3 days now, we've been seeing a very little bit amount of drones, going into Ukraine. And I've been telling you guys, expect a major attack coming very soon. And this is what this report is talking about today. I would not be surprised, maybe even tonight, we're going to see a massive drone and missile attack onto Ukraine again. So here's another report from Max 25. Ukrainian air defense shot down 11 out of 35 Shahed drones and 6 UAVs suppressed by electronic warfare units. So yeah, take a look at this. Only 35 today. And yesterday, I think it was somewhere around 50 or so, if I remember. It wasn't very many. Also, this is at least 2, maybe 3 days now. So every time we see this, when we see these numbers really start to fall off the cliff in terms of drone attacks, that's when all of a sudden Russia will carry out a massive attack, sometimes 400, 500 or more drones. And just like a week ago, we were seeing sometimes 700 or close to 1,000 a night. And yeah, expect something very big, possibly even tonight, into Ukraine in terms of a drone attack and maybe missiles as well. Now, from Kiev Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of July 18th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update of the day, Russia's losses as of July 18th: 1,180 troops, 9 AFVs, 111 vehicles and fuel tanks, 3 tanks, 47 artillery systems, 135 UAVs, and 1 MLRS system. All right, so it looks like we have another multiple launch rocket system that has been destroyed. Yesterday, there was reports of, I think, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems that were knocked out as well. So some major hits to Russia's military here recently. And then also, aside from that, 47 artillery systems, about average. Tanks and AFVs, AFV numbers up a little bit, but we've typically been seeing about single-digit numbers for AFV and tank destruction on the Russian side. Vehicles and fuel tanks still about average, around 100. And same with troop numbers, up just a tiny bit. We've been seeing more around 900 or 1,000, up to almost 1,200 today. I think that's similar to what we saw yesterday. So I want to thank you guys very much for being here for today's update on July 18th, 2025 on Friday. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day out there and enjoy your weekend. Be safe out there. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. But that's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.